They're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds. I'm not a schemer. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. And here we go.
Well, hello there. How is everyone? You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Saturday morning. The sun is shining. Well, it's going to be raining and thunder in about an hour, apparently. But anyway, you're looking absolutely amazing. And we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. As look, I appreciate it is Saturday, and because it's Saturday, you guys have probably got better things to do than listen to me ramble on yet again in my quest for just finding out what in the blue monkey fuck balls is going on in the Idaho 4 case. And look, I know that by talking about Bryan Kohberger, it upsets some people. Over the last few hours alone, I've had multiple emails that have wished me and my own children dead, and multiple other quite grotesque things. But look, it is what it is, and it says a lot more about these sort of people than it does about myself and those who are on the same path as I am on, which is just trying to make sense of the situation. And look, I appreciate that many people think, look, the biggest proof in the world that you need that Bryan Kohberger is the guilty person in this case is the fact that Bryan Kohberger pled guilty and accepted the charges laid before him and walked off into the night as the perpetrator. But look, I'm not an idiot. I am fully appreciative of the fact that he could indeed be guilty, but I'm also not naive enough to believe that this is how it all ends, and because he said he did it, there is absolutely no possible way whatsoever that there could be anything else going on here, especially after what we've seen and what we continue to see. And in that vein, let's talk about this craziness, because trust me, this is absolutely insane. This is insanity. Now, I'm not going to play Jules' video, but I'm going to show you something on the screen. Now, I am going to be going live tomorrow and going over some of the documents and talking about some of the things that have been raised, and we'll have a backwards and forwards conversation. I also invite some of the people who believe that we should now leave this alone and believe that Bryan Kohberger is the person who done it to have their say as well, as long as they keep it respectful. If you don't, you can fuck off. And yes, I am blocking people in this channel who cannot remain adult about their thoughts and feelings. When they start going on to personal digs, jibes, attacking people, I'm just not entertaining it anymore whatsoever. Or the subsequent emails that come to me afterwards being abusive and again threatening my children. But this video here, this is the last one. This is part 4 of Jules, where she is going over specifically this Molly McDaniels. And so to put into context who Molly McDaniels is a self-proclaimed friend of none other than Bad Santa. So that's red flag number 1, that we've got someone who is claiming, when she is pulled over previously by Payne of all people, to turn around and say, look, I'm a friend of Bill Thompson's. He's my mate. Now, I don't know whether he would ever be walking around wearing a T-shirt saying Molly McDaniels is my friend, because she's not someone who I would admit to being friends with. She's just a little bit, how can we say, without being too offensive, ropey. But look, so why is it so important to talk about this, right? So as you can see on the screen, there's some things that are mentioned here, right? And the things that are mentioned is that Molly McDaniels is the Doordash delivery driver. Now, what do you learn? What do you know about Doordash deliveries? That generally they're doing multiple deliveries. They've got satellite navigation usually. They've got access to the person who has made the food delivery. So in the event they can't find the home, they can give them a tinkle and say, oh, I can't really find you. Can you help me? Yada, yada, yada. And they're also on a little bit of a timing thing. You would think that they would be pretty quick. In there, out there, whatever. But in this instance, there's multiple red flags. First of all, we know that this house is the house that these 4 young people would lose their lives pretty much around the time that this individual's there. Okay, so that is again really important because we simultaneously are being shown footage of a car that they're calling suspect vehicle 1, and they're passing that off as a white Hyundai Elantra. Now, earlier on, it was stated that that was a 2011 to 2013. Then, when Brian Koberger come into the fray, it was then changed to be someone else. Now, that can be explained away, and I fully appreciate that. They could have just broadened it. They could have took another look and went, you know what? Aesthetically, these 2 years are very, very similar. So if we just make an adaptation to those dates, we're pretty much we're good. We're good to go. Cheers to our bye. But that's not the issue here, because another important thing to understand is humans, we see color. We see color. We don't see things the same as what cameras do. We don't see an infrared. We see normally. So you would think that anything that can be misinterpreted through infrared, such as color, for instance, color, if you've got an eyewitness at the scene of that crime, say scene of the crime, and they can kind of tell you other things, then you're likely going to be able to trust what they are saying more than what you could trust a infrared. And I'm talking about in terms of color and some other missing things, such as on the cameras, we don't see the driver. We don't see who's driving the car. We don't see any of that. We just see a car that it could pass off as a white Hyundai Elantra. It could also pass off as multiple other cars that share very similar aesthetics. And being that color, many, many colors can appear very, very similar under infrared light, such as tan. Molly McDaniels claims that she sees a tan car, not a white Hyundai Elantra. She sees a tan sedan. And she will go on to say that not only is she seeing a tan sedan, but she is seeing someone in the car so clearly that she can tell you what kind of hair they've got, what color hair they've got, blonde, possibly red, spiky hair, and wearing what appears to be a white collared shirt. So not Brian Koberger. And the car is a tan car. Now, what they then try to do in this document is say the white Hyundai Elantra is seen at this time. The white Hyundai Elantra is seen driving in this area and basically driving right near Molly McDaniels. But then you think, but hold on a second, there's no footage of that we've seen. So you would think that you would want to see that. And you would also want to be able to have an opportunity in court to say, well, hold on a second, because this individual is saying, and look, this gets worse, not just this car situation. So that she's seeing a tan car with a lone male individual in it, with his light on in the car. And it's at this time of the night, and it's at a house that just happens to have a quadruple homicide. But she doesn't say that she sees a white Hyundai Elantra. She just doesn't say it. At no point does she turn around in this interview and say, I saw this individual wearing black, or he had black on, or he had a mask on, or he had a hat on, or he had dark curly hair, or he had bushy fucking eyebrows. She literally says there's another car, a tan sedan with a different individual in it, not Brian Koberger. And not only that, but while she's looking up, and look, we're not going to get into the fact that her own story of how she's around this property for approximately 15 minutes. 1 second she's at the front, then she goes round to the back. She doesn't know whether the house is the right one or not because she seemingly can't see the massive fucking 1122 plastered on the front of the property. And she then simultaneously also claims that she's staring at the house and seeing an individual, a female, in the 3rd floor bathroom who is looking at her out of the window. And every time she looks up, the person in the window ducks down. So this is what we've got in this document, okay? So what I'm going to say to people is, look, when we're turning around and saying, We've got a story that we're told, and there's a situation where Ann Taylor, throughout all this, is saying Brian Koberger's innocent. Brian Koberger's innocent. He didn't do this crime. You see this battle with the state wanting to execute Brian Koberger. There's multiple times when the defense team are trying to get the death penalty struck from the record, get it off, and they are digging their heels in, saying basically they have to be professional, but in reality they're just saying fuck off. He did this crime. It fits this criteria. We're going to fucking execute him. And we're not taking any of your bullshit excuses why we shouldn't. The last thing that happens, near enough, the last movement that is made is Ann Taylor talking about alternative suspects. That's the last real big thing that we saw, which at that point, there seems to be a fucking huge shift. That's the shift where the judge turns around and says that it's basically fucking ludicrous. The state turn around and say, look, they're taking the piss. They're just fucking throwing everything at the wall and hoping that it fucking sticks. And then we come to a plea deal where you think to yourself, hold on a second. If the state are turning around and digging their heels in saying, no, we're going to execute this motherfucker, and that's what we're going to do, and they're saying that we've got him back to fucking rights. They've seemingly claiming that they've got this eyewitness, yada yada yada, and then all of a sudden, there's this shift goes to no, we're not going to execute him anymore. If he agrees that he did everything, then we will then not execute him. And you think Brian Koberger's ASD. Now, again, I stand by the fact that I'm not. Brian Koberger could have done this crime. I'm not sitting here trying to defend a killer. I'm trying to make sense of the situation. I'm trying to make sense of what we are seeing in the documents. Documents, when they come out, should answer questions. If you've got a question in your mind, we've gone through this for 2.5 fucking years, and everybody, even the people who felt that Brian Koberger was guilty of this crime all along, their mentality has always been, you will find out more information as time goes on, and it will answer the questions, it will fill in the blanks. What has happened is a load of information has been prevented from coming out this entire time. It's been blocked. Discovery, block. Then it all comes out after the fact. So he's now pled guilty, walked off into the night. And the docs have all come out. And are they answering questions? Or are they creating more questions? Because even something as simple like yesterday, we went over the 8-hour time delay, the aftermath of the crime itself. And that proved that even that story has changed multiple times. And you think to yourself, maybe from the kids' perspective, and I call them kids as everyone else do, but they ain't fucking kids, they're just young adults. But the point being, maybe their story never changed. But the way it was told by the authorities to the courts and to push it out in the public, that is when it changed. Because they needed it to change. Because if they'd have put it out as it actually happened and as it was told, it would raise questions. And we're seeing the same with the Doordash driver. The Doordash driver's story comes out and all of a sudden it fucking flattens the theory that these individuals were in their beds asleep when this individual went into a house and executed them. They weren't a fucking sleep. You got someone in the fucking window at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, they're in the window and they're ducking down. So they're looking at someone out the window outside. And every time they look up, they duck. Why would somebody in the house do that? Now, you could turn around and say that individual is either Maddie or Kaylee. Now, they're saying dark-haired individual. And that doesn't really then say that that's Maddie or Kaylee. That would actually suggest that it's potentially Xana that's up on the 3rd floor in the bathroom and looking down. So was Xana actually upstairs to start with and come down? If so, why? Who knows? If Xana had made the delivery for food, would she then have not looked and then gone down to help the individual. I don't know. But the fact is, this individual is saying she is literally looking at the property and there is somebody in the bathroom window looking out. And when she looks up at them, they keep ducking down. So that again changes the entire situation where you're thinking someone is entering into this house and executing people while they sleep. That element of surprise is fucking gone now because the individual must have got into the room and these two individuals, Maddie and Kaylee, for instance, would have been sitting there fucking awake. They'd have been awake. So this individual walks in the room and they're awake, not asleep. Or somebody else was in the house in the third floor bedroom while they were asleep, looking out at what was happening outside and ducking down like they don't want to be seen upstairs. Or could it have been Dylan Mortensen or Bethany Funk? Again, the hair colour throws a spanner in the works with that. But the point is that we've got activity around this house that is bizarre and odd. And not only that, but you've also got this Doordash driver not saying that she saw a white Hyundai Elantra, not that she saw Brian Koberger, that she actually saw a tan sedan car with a completely different individual in it. So what the fuck was this individual doing outside this property at this time of night? And is that in fact who the individuals in the window were looking out for? The whole thing just don't make sense. There's loads and loads of questions. And when you're hearing what this individual is saying, now there again, and why it's important to understand the infrared situation is that the Doordash driver doesn't see an infrared. So if she's seeing a car that she is claiming is tan, then we can be certain that that car is not white. And if that car is not white, then it's not Brian Koberger's car. And if there's a situation where both of these or all three of these vehicles work on this camera, so you've got the tan car and the Doordash driver and Brian Koberger's car all simultaneously in this area, which they would have had to have been, then where's the footage that shows it? All three of the cars all together, so we can look at it and say, right, so that's the tan car, you can obviously see that. That's the Doordash drive, we know that now, that's the Subaru Forester, and oh, and here's the white Hyundai Elantra. But we don't have it, and we'll probably never see it. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that there isn't more questions now that more documentation is coming out, and see if you can do it with a straight face. Let me know down below what you think. Love you all. Mwah.